Stanford University.
Good morning. Nice to see you all. And today we're looking at the element of metal. And metal relates to the season of autumn. And there's a lot of associations with metal, particularly though I wanted to focus on nourishment of the emotion, grief. Grief also is one of the hardest emotions, I think, human beings feel and experience, and it can be a very difficult one to let in. And so metal, interestingly, that with the emotion being grief, it also has two distinguishing qualities to it. Metal relates to courage, because to grieve is really to allow the difficulty and pain of grief, which the source of that pain is I would just say hands down love. The source of our pain when we grieve is love, and it takes courage to love. And it takes courage to open ourselves to the pain of grief. And so metal gives us this, metal has this quality of courage. And then the other quality it has is respect. And when someone has passed, or when we've lost something, when we grieve something, a really beautiful way of honoring the grief is through respecting the person or the event or the situation that has been. And it's also respect in that courage takes respect, whether it's our own self-respect, that we respect others as well. So if we are doing something for someone else, it's out of respect for them. We respect our elders, we respect our teachers, but that we also just don't give in and become subservient. And we have respect for ourselves. And that kind of respect also really nourishes grief, in that we can feel that the love that is the source of our grief, have a respect for what has been and the relationship and the love that has been there, and then the courage to really open to that. Very often, though, we push grief away, or we get subsumed by it, consumed by it, and it becomes very difficult to digest. But like any emotion, it can be in balance. Like all the elements, it can manifest as something quite beautiful. And when we grieve in a way that is balanced, it allows us to really appreciate what has been, and also appreciate what is still. So grief and metal open us to the treasures of our lives. It has to do with inspiration and letting go, and the two go hand in hand. So we'll look at that as we come into our practice through qualities of embodiment, as we have done each day. You're welcome to also do some of the practices or all of the practices seated. So you're welcome to also use a chair. And we'll start with the hands resting onto the lower abdomen. The feet about shoulder distanced wide. You can also do this sitting on a chair, resting the hands here. The lungs and the large intestine are the organs associated with metal, which I find really complementary to the idea of inspiration and letting go. Every time we breathe in, it's like, right, something good happens. It's inspiring respiration. We breathe in. And then breathing out is the subsiding, but there's also the releasing and the letting go. Similarly, large intestine, the colon, is about letting go of the waste in our body. So the invitation now is to take a few moments attuning to your breath, Within the breath cycle, the arising and dissolving of experience, the inhale and the exhale. And the way in which we might feel the inspiring qualities, the bringing in of what's valuable and important through the in-breath, nourishment to ourselves. And through the out-breath, the letting go of what is no longer needed or necessary, the toxicity, carbon dioxide released out. And then the breathing in of what feels like it can support a sense of courage and dignity and strength. These are qualities of metal in balance. And letting go of senses of overstepping, cutting off, being a bit too sharp. Metal can be very sharp. Or grief, the nourishment of grief, letting go of what holds us back from that courage. Fear, pain. We meet that and we soften it, but we meet it with the courage to open to love. Meet that with the courage to open to respect for what has been and what is and will come. Releasing the arms. And sometimes courage escapes us or eludes us because we think that it needs to be powerful or, something a little bit forceful. But courage is also encouraged to be open and vulnerable, to be authentic, to love. So might gather, it's the things that preclude what nourishes our grief, courage, what precludes that inner strength and dignity and respect. And gather what stands in the way of that, maybe lacking self-respect, lacking respect for others, clearing that sense of inability to stand up for oneself, not enough dignity or respect, or the loss of faith, not having courage, can clear some of that. And then gather the opportunity to tune into your courage, the ability to respect and have confidence in oneself and others, and feel these qualities can help us meet the difficulty of loss and grief and open us to the onflow of appreciation, really seeing what it is we treasure in life. And then gather what you've just filled, your inner capacity for courage, respect, dignity, strength, and seal this in. Let that complete on its own. If you'd like, you can adjust the feet for a moment. Just feeling into the sense of comfort, nourishing the roots, letting the chi sink down. Because we got a slightly later start due to the tech missing link, the technological missing link. I'm going to do a shorter warm-up, but one that's still quite effective. This is wild horse shaking. And the heels stay on the ground. The effort is gentle. Allow some exhales through the mouth. Inviting the lung tissue in particular and the lower abdomen, the area of the colon, to feel less constricted, more available for some release. In our accumulation, mad, hungry, materialistically driven society, right? Accumulation is a lot more accepted than letting go, than releasing. More is often seen as somehow sign of success. But again, if we look to nature, nature doesn't hold on to the flowers that bloom in spring. It doesn't keep blooming all year round. It knows the wisdom of softening, slowing down, letting go. And then it's a very little variation for you. Turning to the left, I'll mirror you. And do the shaking turned towards one direction. This can affect some of the nice tissue along the right side of your lungs, as well as bring some therapeutic benefit to the spine, organs. Sensing the weightlessness of no saddle on your back still, or captive horses would also sometimes be bridled and have a bit stuck in their mouths, so relaxing the jaw, the mouth. And then the same to the other side, turning to your right, mirroring you. Anytime you want to exhale through the mouth, it's also welcome. And allowing the torso and arms to return towards center. There's a Qigong legend that a certain school of Qigong shakes for 7 hours at a time as their sole practice. And I've never done any longer than 10 minutes, but even after 3 or 4 minutes, if you slow this down and notice as you move towards stillness, what the effect is in terms of the sensations you feel. Maybe you look at your hands, your palms, they sometimes can look a bit splotchy, and that's a sign of the capillaries opening up. But can you imagine 7 hours of this? The gentleness that you would have, as well as the perseverance, the courage, right, to continue and let go into what some say is the shake that's always there. And we'll adjust the feet once more. Take a moment in your Wuji emptiness stance. And I would say if you have limited time in your morning or your evening for some practice, but you would still like to do some Qigong every day, what we've just done, the wild horse shaking, center, left, right, 5 minutes of that in one sort of small window of time can really be a nice reset for your nervous system, can stimulate some flow through the meridians and the connective tissue. So my suggestion would be, try that if you only have a small window of time. Now, as we stand in Wuji, letting the Qi sink. We're here the last few days, the standing position is relaxed like a pine tree and long hair, the image in the character for pine tree and hair. Imagine as the pine tree prepares for winter, it's an evergreen. It doesn't lose its leaves. Nevertheless, it probably still does, as most other trees do, absorbs deep roots, deep nourishment in its roots, readies itself for the shorter days, colder temperatures. Autumn is the time of letting go, and that is associated with grief, the loss of something that was once precious. So as you stand just with some space and room for nourishing what can support a balanced meeting of grief, where we allow it in and allow it to metabolize and be digested. Allow it to be also normalized. Nature loses its beauty of spring each autumn, but knows it will return the following spring. And from the stillness here, introducing some movement as you complete this. Bringing the hands back towards the lower dantian, abdomen. Invitation to really connect again to the quality of the lungs breathing. And the lungs, let the inspiration, spirit in spiritus, respiration process. It connects us to spirit. And they do the complete cycle of the arising and the subsiding of experience. Releasing the arms, and we'll do a few forms that can help initially create some space around the lungs. And if you think about when the feeling of sadness or grief is quite strong, and there's like a strong emotion, we often will feel this as a like a weeping sound, so that the lungs store the grief. And to nourish the lungs can nourish our capacity to accept and work with and normalize both the difficulty and the beauty of what it means to grieve. Because when we do grieve fully, we give respect to what is past. So showing from the side, the elbows will come to about a 90-degree angle. And when you bend your elbows back, focus on your elbows rather than your lower back or spine so much, lower spine. This is called opening the gate. Knees are bent, you bend your elbows back and you inhale. Then as you exhale, bend your knees, turn your hands so the backs of the palms face each other, And you exhale to close the gates, moving them forward, ears between your arms. Then lift up and stand, inhaling, elbows bend back. Repeating, exhaling, palms turn so the backs of the hands face each other and the tailbone reaches back, crown forward. You can do this seated as well. If you inhale seated, you could focus just on the upper body's movements, and exhaling forward. Do this a few more rounds, exploring the range of extension or a gentle back bend, but not in your low back so much as in the shoulders, upper back, where the lungs live. And then exhaling, creating some spreading of the upper back and the shoulder blades apart, which can benefit the back lungs. Elbows bend, opening the fronts of the lungs. Reaching forward, turn your palms so they face away from each other. Yes, and reach forward. A couple more rounds, breathing in. And then breathing out, reaching. One more, inhale, rising, elbows bend back, opening the gates. Exhale, and close the gates. Then arms float down as the crown of the head rises up, letting the sensation in the form complete on its own naturally. And gathered, it's the space that you're giving to your lungs that in Chinese medicine and Qigong store and hold grief, but also process and metabolize it along with the large intestine and fill with that support that you're giving to your lungs. Offering some practical space and openness so that the breath can feel more complete or accessible. Rest the hands and onto your lower dantian. And the second practice we'll do for the lungs and opening them is something called circling sparrows. So one hand, I'll mirror you, your left hand, palm is up towards the sky, and the right hand is palm also up toward the sky. The arms are kind of round, so they create this yin-yang symbol almost. And knees are soft. As you exhale, tip towards your right, mirror you again, and then open the arms as you breathe in. They change position, right palm towards the sky, left palm also turned towards the sky as you exhale. Sometimes you can press the bottom palm out again, but sometimes you also just keep both palms skyward. Inhale, open, both palms up as you exhale and side bend. And this one, you can probably feel it. It's quite nice for the sides of the ribs, which are known as your intercostal muscles, or sides of the ribs have muscles called the intercostals in between them. They can get a little bit grumpy and tight. So it's really nice to do movements like this to support gentle release of them, kind of like Venetian blinds or an accordion that opens, exhaling over. And again, it's very important just to know that even if you don't think about or, hold grief per se as a direct intentional process to nourish, by simply doing these forms, we support the lungs, support the movement of qi flow also through the whole body, which then naturally enables the range of our emotional experiences and life experiences to be metabolized, to move with experience rather than push up against it or deny it. We'll do 1 or 2 more rounds. Since we started with the left hand up, we'll finish with the right hand up. It might be 1 or 2 rounds for you. And as you finish, let the arms open to the 2 sides. Pause there. And soften the knees. Going to do 1 more. It's also for the lungs, but it's also very good for the rotational aspect of the spine. So the hands, they're going to be rolling inwards. So you might just try that first. You're going to be rolling inwards and pushing out. Yeah. So when you turn, you can bend your knees, and when you turn, your arms are rolling inwards, you're turning, and then the hands push out. This builds a little bit of strength around the muscles surrounding the upper back, mid-back, and spine. And then exhale and turn the arms inwards, but press the hands outwards. Inhaling in to center. Exhaling, turn and press. As you continue, you might even feel that the arms don't just press out from the palms, but could they press out from each lung? So that there's integrity, there's strength, there's courage, there's a sense of that movement from the lung tissue itself. You could do this seated as well. Turning and gently pressing the palms out from your lungs. Yeah. And we'll do 1 or 2 more rounds. Connecting to that strength, the power of the lungs, and then finishing back at center, taking a moment, letting those practices complete, and gathering just this nourishment to the lungs that hold and meet our grief, digest it. And through that process, as you fill, knowing also the lungs have the capacity to inspire. Lungs, an inspiration and appreciation for what is valuable and most treasured in our lives, also a quality of metal. We'll finish with the hands back on the dantian, taking a breath. And we'll step the feet together for our metal element practice that we did on Friday, if you were here. So this one, the feet, similar to the other elemental practice forms, they'll step out, bend, straighten, step back in. That will be the same for both sides. And with the hands, as you step out with your left foot, the hands gather gather what is nourishing for the lungs. And then the hands from the sides of the ribs will press forward as the knees bend. And in some ways, this is a symbol of defense, of good, strong boundaries. Inhale back in and exhale back with the foot as the hands let go and release. And stepping out, gather what is nourishing, what is valuable for you, and then letting go, and also maybe keeping out what is harmful and toxic and not so valuable to you. Breathing in and then breathing out, releasing. That's also a quality of metal. It's this clear discernment, sharpness of metal, bringing in what nourishes you. It helps with our immunity. Good metal. Exhale, keeping out. Good defense is keeping out what is threatening, dangerous, harmful. Breathing in and then breathing out. And that's true in our grieving process. You know, when we grieve, we want to keep good company. We want people who will understand the love that we've had and the pain of and memory of what has passed. And it's important to respect oneself for that and respect the need for a sanctuary in some ways of support. One of the hardest things that I know many people have shared with me that I've experienced with grief is when people say things they don't intend or don't understand what is going on, and they don't know what to say when we don't know what to say. And it can feel very difficult. But good metal and healthy sort of ways of working with the energy of grief can allow us to not be rude to people who are not understanding, but just, you know, for some time recognize what we need. Maybe are people understanding, respectful, supportive, who can accept our grief, work with our grief. And we also want to be able to let go of our grief. When it's time to let go, we let go. We honor and respect what has been. We give recognition to it, appreciation for it. And then let it move through us. We can also move into what sometimes inspires us. I remember when I've moved through lots of different periods of loss in my life, losing one of my best friends made me realize like how rare life is, how fleeting it is, how quickly it can go, and how I don't want to waste any of my time. I want to appreciate every moment that I'm here, that I have the gift to be here. And I sometimes even try to grieve things while they're alive. Like my mother, she's things and people. My mother, and she's 84, she won't be around for long, not in great health. I'm really trying to grieve her now. Tell her, Mom, you might die tomorrow, you might die in another 10 years, but I want you to know, at your funeral, I'm going to tell everyone what an amazing life you've lived. I want her to know that she'll be appreciated. I don't want to wait till she's gone to tell her that. Same thing with my cat. She's so cute. And I tell her many mornings, Annie, you're so cute. You know, you're not going to live forever. I want to appreciate you now. I will appreciate you as long as you're alive. And that's what good metal can help us with, is appreciation. Nourishes our grieving process. But in that process, you need to also develop, as I've been saying, this type of inner courage and strength and ability to open the heart enough to have the ability to feel our love in a way that feels genuine and authentic. Do one more round. Bringing in what nourishes, keeping at bay what harms, bringing it in and then knowing when to let go and letting go. Feet step apart, gathering. These qualities of metal help us with discernment, our qualities of courage, healthy boundaries, and the ability to relinquish and release. Relinquishing what is no longer needed or doesn't serve us. Rest the hands and on the dantian. Do one more practice. One of my favorites for developing this courage and dignity that I've been suggesting help our grief. It's called the white tiger breathing chi. And show you closer up. The tiger has little claws or paws, so that the ends of your fingers just kind of roll in a bit like this. Yeah. They don't have to be sharp claws. They could be if you wanted to, but they can also just be soft paws. And this really works with this idea of the tiger being an animal in the wild who is fierce, courageous. And Qigong takes a lot of teachings from nature and the animals, and in many ways humbles ourselves to their strengths, and we become their students. So we try to learn from the tiger. You can think of a white tiger, and this tiger with its claws and paws circles the hands outwards. I'll show you close up. Circles the hands outwards and then rolls finger by finger in to gather chi from the earth in a fist. And then both hands inhaling up towards the sky, opening the hands as you exhale, looking up. Then that same thing, your claws circle and you gather inspiration from the sky. In your fists, draw that down, open the hands at the level of your chest, and then exhale, release back to the earth. Again, gathering, rolling your fingers into fists, breathing in, you lift up. The white tiger exhales, looks up towards the sky, and the fists, so the claws rather, and then the hands move back into fists as you breathe in. Opening the hands, level of the chest, breathing out, letting go. Circling, breathing in this quality of dignity, courage, and strength. Reaching up, ascending while you stay rooted down. Exhale, open. And then gathering that sense of courage, dignity, and strength, drawing that down into the form of your body, opening the hands and letting go what might impede those qualities from arising in your experience. A few more times, gathering. Open, exhale. Gather, inhale, making fists, drawing down what is inspiring, treasured, appreciative in your life, things you can appreciate. And then exhale, also letting go of what no longer serves. One more round, circling, breathing in, fists rise up, opening, breathing out, gathering the dignity, the strength, the courage of the tiger, feeling that into the form of your body, letting go of what hampers or impedes those qualities. Naturally let that form complete and gather your tiger-like ability for that nourishment of grief that comes from the courage to love, the clarity to respect, the discernment, and fill with that into your body. Rest the hands and sliding them back to the lower dantian. We'll finish with the closing form for peaceful chi. As you turn the palms out, gathering what can unfold as peaceful chi, the benefits from this practice that feel less chaotic, more peaceful, can support this natural emotion of grief. Support it as peace in the body, nourishing your own body and its health and well-being, as well as that of all life. We'll finish as we have the last few days. The invitation to turn your, change your view from speaker to gallery. And if you're new today, we've been doing this each day just as a way to see each other. You can make a fist with your dominant hand and fold the other hand over the fist. And as a way to show our appreciation and respect for each other, the first of our 3 vows is to each other. We're sharing this time together over the last 5 days for some of us. And then the second vow to your teachers, that we always hold some respect for what they share, our teachers past, present, and future. And for respecting the teachings that pass down through our teachers. And then third vow is to yourself, and also to your ancestors, all who've given you life, maybe as far back as to the source that is one. So my appreciation really is for all of you, but especially for the Stanford Contemplation by Design team for the invitation to be here to share these practices. I will happily stay around for another 10 minutes. If anybody, I think maybe just direct messages to me again. Thanks for getting us started. Now it's practice and practice to start the journey. Exactly. The Tao Te Ching has one of the probably more famously quoted lines. The journey of 1,000 miles begins from beneath your feet. But the whole chapter, the translation of it, I quite like. It says, what is rooted is easy to nourish. We've been talking a lot about rootedness. What is brittle is easy to break. I've also talked a lot about the importance of hydrating the body. What is recent is easy to correct. And so that's an invitation to not get lost in the past or fast forward into the future. But if we stay recent and present, we're more adaptable, more flexible, easy to correct. What is small is easy to scatter. It means open to a larger life. Don't get too myopic and stuck in your own views and opinions, or me, I, my problems. Prevent trouble before it arises. Like Qigong is a preventative medicine. Put things in order before they exist. A giant pine grows from a tiny sprout or seed. The journey of 1,000 miles begins from beneath your feet. So it's practice, practice, practice. That we all can be seeds right now, and we can then, in however many years it takes, become a giant pine. Relaxed. Like a pine. Yeah. I'm going to just actually share something. David Hinton. Okay. This is quite a nice piece. It doesn't have to do with Qigong, but it has to do with a little bit with the relationship between Chinese language, deep ecology, Taoism, and Chan Buddhism. He is a translator of Chinese poetry, David Hinton. It's a really good interview. But short answer, Qigong has taken influence from both the Taoist philosophies and teachings and Buddhist philosophies and teachings, because as Taoism was the original sort of meditative practices in China, and as Buddhism made its way into China, starting quite early, 179 AD, I believe, spread through trade routes. The imperial court was very interested in the teachings of the Buddha, but they needed translators, and the people they got to translate them were the Taoists. And the translation of the texts took 700 years from Sanskrit into, and Pali, mostly Sanskrit, into Chinese. But because of the ways that Chinese language works, there's almost an inevitable association with Taoist views of self and world and nature. And that then informed the Buddhist Chan concepts of experience, phenomenon, understanding of self. And they were very complementary. And the Taoists who started practicing Dao Yin, leading and guiding the Qi practices, described on scrolls, again dating far back, 168 BC. They were found in scrolls and tombs unearthed in the 1970s in a tomb called the Mawangdi tombs. But the Buddhists also then took on quite a lot of the movement practices, and then you'll know, for example, the Shaolin monks are a Buddhist monastery famous for Shaolin Kung Fu. But a lot of the practices done today, for example, the muscle tendon changing classics, are believed to have evolved out of the Shaolin monastery practices. So they were really co-evolving. Buddhism and Taoism were influencing the evolution of movement and energy forms over the centuries. But the two practices and traditions were also very closely influencing each other and share, often like a very common origin. In fact, David Hinton would say the same origin. Chan and Taoism have the same spiritual origin. Yeah, I think so. But I think also what Qigong has really helped me with, and what I've also experienced from others who have shared with me their experience of Qigong is that it allows us to be more adaptable and accept what is arising, which is seasonal change. The days are shorter, the temperatures are cooler, and depending on where you live in the world, that could be more extreme, like it is in the UK. Like it gets dark early, but rather than rejecting it or giving into it or feeling overwhelmed or suffocated by things that change and out of control, Qigong is an invitation to recognize this is a part where we're on a cycle. There's a continuity and a movement, and there's some relief, maybe some insight, some ability as well to absorb and digest whatever is arising without as much immediate negative impact. It's sort of all of the elements though kind of contribute to homeostasis and our ability to regulate and self-regulate. So, if we have, it's not just metal that can help us with SAD, right? Because everything is connected, right? And we would need sort of this support of sort of all elements and seasonal qualities, the resilience and creativity of meeting obstacles that wood has, the ability for calm tranquility that fire has, the capacity for quiet reflection and soft power and strength that water has, the ability to meet the different oppositional forces and maintain center that earth has. All of these can really contribute. But there can be a specific grief associated with not having enough daylight hours, like the sadness around it, but we could also see it as one part of the cycle, that this is essential for us to then grow. Like a lot of people want to keep being as productive as they are in spring when it comes to autumn, and nature just doesn't do that. So it's a bit about kind of harmonizing and aligning a bit more with what's natural and what is complementary to the way that we feel. So yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful day. Please do stay in touch, continue practicing. Encouragement to take these teachings if they're supportive, and grow them in what ways work for you. Thank you all. Have a great day.